let's have a look at what went down on the tour this past week, because we were experiencing the Monte Carlo Masters. That was all taking place down on the French Riviera. Lovely setting for it, and a lovely setting for Carlos Alcaraz to win his sixth Masters 1000 title and his first in quite a while. He beat Lorenzo Musetti in 3 sets in the final on Sunday. Bit of an odd scoreline, 3-6, 6-1, 6-love, racing away with it at the end of the match. Musetti definitely hampered by an injury, unfortunately, as the match wore on. But Alcaraz will be pleased to get this title, I think, despite those circumstances. He's not been in great form over the last couple of weeks, had a really early exit in Miami. This is going some way to kind of turning his fortunes around at the start of the clay season. Throughout the course of the week, he did have a couple of grittier wins and then some more straightforward ones. Perhaps didn't have to play the highest caliber of opponents, it's fair to say, for a Masters 1000. But overall, Joel, how impressed were you with Alcaraz's week in Monte Carlo?
Well, Kim, you said the Monte Carlo Masters. I mean, we should be calling it the Monte Carlos Masters, shouldn't we?
Oh,
Oh, how long did it take you to think of that one,
Oh
Joel?
no. Um,
can hear
I
the
know
eye
that's fine.
rolling.
Let's move on. Let's move
Oh.
on. No, I think he had a very good week. He would have liked to have done better. I think out in America in the Sunshine Double, but certainly this is a surface that feels so natural to him, and having the clay swing begin, it almost acts as that kind of natural reset. And although I think here there were a few hiccups along the way, I still think he needs to start better, in some of his matches. I mean, going down a set against Cerundolo, Musetti in the final, and then the tennis I thought he played the best was against Fils. I actually thought that was one of the matches of the tournament. So I think he can definitely look at some moments where he can say he's getting back to his best. But I still wonder if there are some questions that remain that show I didn't necessarily feel like this is peak Carlos Alcaraz. It still shows that I think there's work to be done.
Yeah, he will be back up to number 2 in the world now. So he's edged Zverev in the rankings, which it feels a bit more maybe
Not hard
rightful.
to do, let's be honest.
Yeah,
At this moment in time.
Yeah, it's Zverev having a bit of a shocker as well. So yeah, he's kind of reclaimed that ranking. Obviously, Sinner's still number 1. And like you said, he didn't have the greatest of weeks, but he did enough. He did what he needed to do. He's got the title. But Chris, I'm going to come to you. If we'd have seen a fighting fit, fully at the races, Musetti, do you think this could have been a different story in that final?
I mean, I do think it could have been. I mean, he took the first set. He was playing some really confident tennis, and they've had some great matches previously. I mean, I remember there was the Hamburg final, which was particularly great. And actually, that was the result where Musetti did come out on top. So it's a good matchup. I think for him, we've seen Musetti in situations like this where something's happened. He's been derailed. I'm not saying it's not a genuine injury at all. He played a lot of tennis, but it is just a little bit of an unfortunate story that quite often some of the biggest matches of his career, something like this does happen, whether it's mental or physical. So, I mean, hopefully we will see him kind of rediscover that form that took him to the semi-final of Wimbledon, where he played some incredible tennis along the way. But I mean, it's just great that he made the final. It was a big deal for him, and some really emotional scenes throughout the week for him actually kind of getting back and announcing himself on the big stage after a period where he hadn't had the results and had been away with injury. So a good week for him. But again, I think Carlos was not as convincing as he could have been and was sort of handed the victory in the final.
A less convincing Carlos. I mean, he does have a great record in finals generally. He's 10-2 in kind of big tournament finals. So for the only 2 losses in those finals were to Novak Djokovic, who was nowhere to be seen, it's fair to say, at the latter stages of the Monte Carlo Masters. We'll get onto that in a second. But yeah, I think Musetti obviously definitely hampered, but he will be debuting as the world number 11 this week. So he's, got those ranking points out of it. He's going up in the rankings. And let's see if he can recover from this leg injury that he was hampered and afflicted with. He did, of course, beat Alex de Minaur in the semi-final, did Musetti. And Alex de Minaur, special mention to him, he did eke a 6-love win out over Grigor Dimitrov, which I think is the first time we've seen that on the men's tour in a while. Like we see it, we have seen it quite recently on the women's side, a couple of double bagels going on, but spare a thought for Grigor Dimitrov. That was a
sad,
ruthless day on court, wasn't it?
I know. I watched Dimitrov's previous match, where he was playing. Oh, sorry, not his previous. His second match. He was playing a Monaco wildcard, Vachero, and he actually apologized to him at the net on the handshake because of how poor his tennis was. And little did I know, a few rounds later, that it was almost like a sense of foreboding. And yeah, he just was not at the races. I mean, some of the statistics were bad. And I hate to say this because Grigor Dimitrov, I feel like he's in the twilight of his career. He's still a very game competitor, but I mean, he hit one winner. In the match, and a staggering 23 of the 63 points ended in an unforced error from the Bulgarians. So yeah, not one to shout about.
What is going 44 minutes? I mean, you can't really believe that. Imagine if you thought, right, I'm settling in for a fantastic match. I mean, that feels like we've seen sets last longer.
Quarterfinals as well. Like maybe you would expect that at like round one if it's a bit of a mismatch.
Well, the wild card from Monaco potentially that should have been 6-love, and he apologized for that. But I mean, for Dimitrov, will he read too much into this, or will he just keep going?
I think
it doesn't feel good. I'm sure
he probably doesn't feel good right now. But I mean, to get to the quarterfinals of the Monte-Carlo Masters, I still think that's a pretty decent effort and a better effort than some of the the big players, because it did sort of feel like a tournament of just kind of being there and not necessarily playing your best, just beating the opponent on the other side of the court.
Survive.
And, yeah, exactly. Survival. And if you look at some of the top seeds, that was not as easy as it came for some other players.
Yes, namely Novak Djokovic, who was out in his first match against Alejandro Tabilo, 6-3, 6-4, Tabilo winning that one. And yeah, Djokovic not at the races. He described his performance as horrible. He was very sorry that all the people had to witness it. And yeah, just horrible being used to describe his performance. So, I mean, he'd only just come off the back of the Miami final, quite a quick turnaround. But, this is a tournament he loves to play at. He's, lives in Monte Carlo. I'm sure he wanted to kind of be there and get some good wins on the clay, but it just really wasn't happening. Do you think he came back too soon? He should have had a bit more of a rest between the hard court, out in the States?
Oh, I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, we were talking about this, the fact that he hasn't always had the best form in Monte Carlo. It's not necessarily been his most happy hunting ground. He's had some pretty big losses here, and a lot of losses, he said, previously have been his worst losses. I mean, that loss to Dan Evans, I remember that one. That particularly stood out because I don't think anyone thinks that Dan Evans is a clay courter necessarily. At least this loss was to a very seasoned clay courter. Very surprising that he said things like, he knew he probably wasn't going to play bad, but this bad I didn't expect. And I mean, you don't expect Djokovic to think he's going to play badly. That seems very strange. Makes me think that maybe if you think you're going to play badly, you do play badly. And for someone who is obviously, I mean, he's the GOAT from the statistics perspective, you don't think that he would not back himself to win matches or play better than he did. So I think that's where it's surprising, is that we still have no idea where his form level really is going into these tournaments, whether it's going to be a round one loss or whether he's going to make a final. It really is hit or miss, and I'm not sure we're going to get much more clarity in the coming weeks.
No, and like you said, it is actually his worst Masters event by kind of stats. He's only won it twice, which obviously a lot of
good for some people
would love that. Yeah,
I mean, Tabilo now has a 2-0 head-to-head record against Djokovic. I know a few weeks ago we were talking about surprising head-to-head matchups. I mean, Tabilo's added himself to the list because, as much as kind of Djokovic was faltering on the tennis court, Tabilo was playing some very good tennis and not letting that situation mess with his head. He was just on the court, playing his tennis, going about his job. And I mean, he did get a little bit tight towards the end of that second set, but impressive from him to pull out the victory.
Absolutely. Another top player, and indeed the top seed here, Sasha Zverev, out in his first match as well. So Berrettini, this was in 3 sets, 7-5 in the third. So a slightly more respectable, scoreline, and see from a more well-known player. But yeah, not great for Zverev either. Obviously he's no longer the world number 2. But yeah, it's just going kind of from bad to worse for him as well at the moment, and just not living up to what I think he predicted last year. He said him and Alcaraz, Sinner, Djokovic are all up there. They're going to be all, dominating this year. That's not happening as it stands, is it?
It's not good. It's not good, is it? It's not been good for a period of time. I guess some sort of respite for him is the fact that, he's gone from like back to back to back 1,000 events. And I think, this week he's dropping down to a 500 in Stuttgart. So potentially, it's the field is a little bit lower quality. Maybe there's an opportunity to get some more confidence, playing a lower level tournament. But he is in a real rut at the moment. And I sort of wonder if getting Jannik Sinner back and having the news and the media attention all focused on that actually might help him in terms of kind of dealing with dealing with this moment, because when the spotlight has been on him, he has melted.
Yeah, absolutely. And another player, Tsitsipas, he did get to the quarterfinals but lost to Lorenzo Musetti. Some news coming out of his coaching camp, possibly a partnership emerging with him and Goran Ivanisevic. I think the Greek newspaper has announced that he's considering hiring him, I think, after the clay court season. He hasn't been able to, he said he's not in a position to answer that yet when he was asked about it in Monte Carlo. But should this be true, do you think that's a good move to go for Goran, Chris?
I think it could be good. Obviously, he's worked with Djokovic previously.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure he was with Rebecca long enough to make an impact after what went down there between her and her coach. I think if you are looking at how his seasons tend to be, all his best results do normally happen at the Australian Open,
Mhm.
the French Open. So I think it is interesting to bring in someone new to try and do that bit better, because I mean last year it was second round and first round exits at Wimbledon, the US Open. He actually hasn't made a quarterfinal at either of those events. So trying to bring someone on, some fresh ideas, I think it is a good decision. And I think why not bring on Goran? I think he's had a lot of experience on the grass. He definitely will have some very valuable things to say. And I'm just pleased that Tsitsipas is getting some outside influence again. I think it's been a while since Philippoussis was in his camp, and I think it's important that he keeps on adding to his game.
Absolutely. I mean, Tsitsipas due to leave the top 15 for the first time since 2018. So that's just a
Wow.
sign of how his form has just dropped. His game's not there. So I think reaching out to, a top coach like Ivanisevic, top name, might be a wise move, might hopefully bring some positive change in his game. But Monte Carlo, that's a wrap for this year. Alcaraz comes away with the title.